Snow was still falling, fine but merciless, onto the frozen concrete of the bridge. A man in a dark grey suit, far too expensive for that place, stopped when he saw what looked like a small body, curled up and motionless. He dropped his phone onto the leather seat of the car and walked over with heavy steps, the heat from the car's heater still escaping through the half-open doors. When he got close, he saw the boy's eyes, open, fixed, red. But what made him stop breathing wasn't the boy. It was what the boy was holding to his chest. The bundle looked hastily wrapped with scraps of a plastic bag, pieces of a blue hoodie, and a torn blanket. But inside it was a baby, too small, too weak, and alive. Her little eyes moved slowly, as if pleading with a world that had shown her nothing but pain. Her pale skin, blotched from the cold, told the story of a long night endured in darkness. Alone. The man knelt down without thinking. He tried to speak, but his throat locked up. The boy looked at him as if he'd lived 100 years of distrust. His lips were purple, his forehead damp with cold sweat. She shook all night, and I didn't want her to go away too, he said. The words came out fragile, tearing through the silence the wind couldn't quite fill. The baby's tiny hand moved, reaching into the air, as if each second was a struggle against being forgotten. And the man, now on his knees, felt the ground vanish beneath him. He was William Carter, CEO of the fourth largest tech company in the country. He had just left a meeting with investors in Manhattan. 5 minutes earlier, he had been discussing mergers, stock prices, profits. Now staring at that boy and that baby, he didn't even know how to breathe. But he didn't yet know the worst part. The boy, who couldn't have been more than 10, wore mismatched sneakers, one green, one blue, both torn. There were marks on his wrists as if ropes had once been tied there. And the plastic bag holding the baby against his chest was stained with dried blood. Not his mother's. William felt the nausea rise, but he stayed. "What's your name?" he asked, voice nearly breaking. The boy hesitated, held the baby tighter as if one wrong word might take her away. "Jaden." And after a beat he added, "Her name is Hope. That's the name my mom asked me to give her. Hope." The word tore through the freezing air like a memory of everything he had lost. William slowly stood up, took off his overcoat, and wrapped both of them in the heavy, still warm fabric. Jaden pulled back at first, but when he felt the warmth, he stopped resisting. William touched his shoulder gently, as if asking permission from a soul in ruins. But there was something no one expected. That same night, just a few blocks away, the police were looking for a missing woman, a homeless woman with a known history of drug use. The description was vague, almost meaningless, just another name on a long list. But what no one knew was that she had left behind a note, hidden, in the pocket of an old jacket. "If I don't come back, save my kids. They're not like me." And now one of the richest men in the United States stood before one of those children, unaware that the life he had built, with everything money could buy, was about to be undone by everything he had never dared to feel. The wind picked up, stirring dirty leaves and scraps of newspaper. William looked around. No cars stopped. No cameras captured it. There, between the damp concrete and the cold that bit through bone, a silent pact was made. He could walk away, return to the polished world of skyscrapers and quarterly earnings, or he could listen to the weak cry rising from Jaden's chest. He didn't know it yet, but he would choose the second path, and it would cost him dearly. Because love, in that moment, cost everything. And this year's was only the beginning. The smell of the shelter still clung to Jaden's memory. It wasn't just the mold on the walls or the old sweat on makeshift mattresses. It was the sound, the voices shouting in the night, the heavy footsteps in the hall, the fingers pulling blankets without warning. He never spoke about it. Not even to his mum. She used to say the world was a hard place even for grown-ups, and that he had to learn to hide inside himself. Jaden learned early. By 6, he already knew how to quiet his cries so he wouldn't draw attention. By 7, he understood that when his mum slept for days without eating, it wasn't normal. By 8, he saw her taken away by police, eyes blank, hands cuffed. While he and Hope were still in the shopping cart they took turns living in. When she came back, she wasn't the same. She carried guilt in her eyes and promises in her torn pockets. But he still believed in her. The night she disappeared for good, Jaden waited. Hope slept, her breath short, muffled by the coat's fabric. His mother had left saying she'd find food. 1 hour passed, then 2. The cold tightened and the sky grew darker. Jaden knew they couldn't stay. He picked up Hope, tied her to his chest the way he had seen his mom do, and walked. With no direction, he just wanted to find shelter. That's when he found the bridge, and stayed. William, on the other hand, could barely remember the last time he had felt cold. His life was made of bulletproof glass, imported coffee, and spreadsheets with too many digits. He'd grown up in a house where silence cost more than presence. His father, a ruthless banker, believed that feelings were weakness. His mother, ornamental and distant, just smiled at dinner parties. When William inherited the empire, he followed the rules. He expanded, he optimized, he multiplied, but he never loved anything. Not the woman he married, not the children that followed. When the divorce exploded in the tabloids, he didn't fight it. When the kids asked to live with their mom, he didn't resist. He simply returned to his penthouse, his contracts, his last-minute flights. Until that morning, the image of Jaden holding Hope followed him like a ghost. He couldn't sleep. Cancelled. Meetings. Told the driver to take him back to the bridge. When he arrived, the place was empty, as if swallowed by the city, but a voice, hoarse and cautious, came from the shadows. "You came back." Jaden hadn't left. He'd been hiding, watching, as always. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford, but something in the man's eyes stopped him from running. William held out his hand. No words, and Jaden, for the first time in days, let someone get close. They got in the car together. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. Hope slept in William's lap, warmed by the heated seat. Jaden watched everything without blinking. When they arrived at William's home, a modern mansion with windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline, the contrast stung Jaden's eyes. This wasn't his world. It was another planet, but there was something no one expected. As they entered, the security system triggered. Not because of a break-in, but because of a scan. The smart home system detected unauthorized minors. Alert, unknown children in the main wing. The artificial voice cut through the air like an accusation. William disabled the system, but Jaden had already understood. This place didn't want children. Not even his own had ever lived there. Still, William prepared a room. With the help of the housekeeper, they improvised diapers, formula, blankets. Hope was examined by a private doctor. She was dehydrated, but alive. Jaden, however, refused any exam. "If they take me, she's alone," he said, staring at William like a defendant, facing a judge. And in that moment, something began to change. William didn't answer. He just nodded. For the first time, he didn't try to fix it with money or authority. He simply stayed, present, and that, to Jaden, was more valuable than any offer. That night, they all slept under the same roof. A lonely billionaire, a wounded boy, and a baby still fighting to exist. But Jaden's past was still alive out there, and it would come back, and sooner than anyone expected. The room was too big. Floor-to-ceiling windows let the city lights flood in, as if trying to take over everything. Jaden slept curled in the corner of the bed, wrapped in the same blanket he'd brought from the street. Even with the thick comforter and brand new pillows, he wouldn't let himself sink into comfort. Hope, in the hastily assembled crib beside the bed, slept deeply, her chest rising and falling with steady rhythm. The room was silent, but inside him, everything was still screaming. In the early hours, William appeared at the door, watching, quietly. He had a glass of whiskey in his hand, but set it down on the dresser before stepping closer. Jaden wasn't sleeping. He never truly slept. When William sat in the armchair beside the crib, the boy's eyes opened slowly. For a moment, neither spoke, until Jaden broke the silence. "She still shakes, even here." William looked at the baby. Her little arms twitched in spasms, and he understood. The cold of the street still lived inside her body. But there was something more. Something the boy didn't say, but carried in his small shoulders. Weight of guilt, of failure, as if trying to pay for something he never did. William recognized it, because for years he too had slept under the burden of feeling responsible for the distance from his children, the absence of his wife, the disconnection from everything real. But he had never said it out loud. Until now. "You're not responsible for this, Jaden." The boy looked away. "If I'd held her tighter, maybe my mom wouldn't have left." And then, for the first time since they met, he cried. Not loudly, not sobbing. He simply let the tears fall, as if they couldn't be held back anymore. William stood and hesitantly placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did everything you could." Jaden didn't respond, but he didn't pull away either. The next morning, a strange sort of routine began to form, almost domestic. The housekeeper, Eliza, made breakfast and left it in the living room with old cartoons playing on TV. Hope was fed every 2 hours. Jaden learned to warm bottles using a voice-controlled microwave. William left early but came back before dusk, always bringing something, a new blanket, a simple toy, a picture book. It was the kind of care he had never even given his own children. But something inside Jaden grew restless. That world, of spotless windows and expensive furniture, didn't match the memories he carried. Anytime he slept longer than a few hours, he'd wake up in a panic, expecting to find the bridge, the cold, the emptiness. One day he asked William to take him back to where his mother had disappeared. She might still be there. She might be waiting. William hesitated, but agreed. They went back. The area was now blocked by construction fencing, the abandoned supermarket, the alley where she used to hide, all swallowed by development. No sign of her, but on the ground, near the spot where they used to sleep, was a purple hair tie. Jaden picked it up and squeezed it in his fist. William said nothing. He simply placed a hand on the boy's back and guided him back to the car. But what no one knew was that someone was watching them. From the rooftop of a nearby building, a man with binoculars took photos, the car's license plate, William's face, Jaden's thin frame. He knew who they were. He knew what they were doing, and he was being paid to know. That night, Jaden didn't want to eat, didn't want to sleep. He sat by the window, watching the city lights like he was searching for answers. William tried to approach, but the boy cut him off with a blunt question. "Why are you doing this?" William didn't know how to answer. "You don't know me, you don't know her, and you're not our dad." The words hit hard, and William, who had never been good with emotional responses, felt the impact. After a long silence, he finally said, "Maybe because I need this just as much as you do." Jaden stared at him for a few seconds like he was searching for a lie. He didn't find one, but he didn't quite believe him either. Trust here was still an open wound, and the next day, it would begin to bleed for real. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to leave a like. The storm came without warning, covering Manhattan's sky in clouds so thick even the tallest buildings seemed to shrink. Inside William's mansion, everything was the opposite. Meticulously controlled, perfectly tempered, utterly quiet between one baby monitor and the next. But Jaden couldn't relax. The sound of rain pounding against the windows dragged him back to that damp corner under the bridge, where the world had tried to swallow them. Hope cried more often now. The pediatrician William had hired diagnosed a possible respiratory infection, worsened by her time exposed to the cold. William listened to the diagnosis with clenched fists. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. He couldn't buy time, couldn't buy immunity. All he could do was wait. And Jaden, watching his sister worsen, started to fall apart in silence. That same week, William got a call that stopped him cold in the middle of the hallway. The voice on the other end was firm, professional. "Mr. Carter, this is Child Protective Services. We've received a report that you're housing 2 children without legal notification." William tried to stay calm. "Who reported this?" he asked. But the line went dead before an answer came. Someone had been watching, and now they had reported him. Fear set in. William knew the system was ruthless with undocumented children. One mistake, one delay, and Jayden could be taken. Hope placed in a public hospital, separated from her brother. And more than that, he would be investigated. His name splashed across headlines. Not as a billionaire, but as the man who hid 2 children of unknown origin. He tried to shield everything, hired lawyers, paid custody specialists, even looked into emergency adoption options. But it wasn't simple. Jayden had no documents. Neither did the baby. They were ghosts in the system, invisible, and each passing day only added to the pressure inside the house. That's when Jayden disappeared. On a Saturday morning, Eliza knocked on the bedroom door and found no one. The crib was empty. The bedmaid, a note written in Jayden's shaky handwriting, sat on the dresser. She can't live in fear, and I can't let them take her. William felt the floor fall out from under him. He searched the entire house, pulled security footage, called the police, hospitals, even the same caseworker who'd been pressuring him. Nothing. Jayden was gone, and he had taken Hope with him. But there was something no one expected. Across the city, Jayden moved through alleys and sirens, trying to remember the way to one of his mother's old contacts, a man named Russell. Someone she once said owed her favors. The neighborhood was rough, filthy, and people stared with suspicion at the skinny boy carrying a baby under his coat. He was trembling, but he didn't stop. Hope slept, weak, and Jayden knew every second was a choice to save her or lose her forever. When he reached the building, Jayden climbed the stairs with aching knees. He knocked hard on the door. No answer. He tried again. Finally, a man opened up. Bloodshot eyes, breath reeking of alcohol. "Jayden? What the hell? What are you doing?" "Here, kid." Russell recognized him, but he didn't look happy to see him. Jayden spoke fast, trying not to cry. "My mum said you could help, if she ever didn't come back." Russell looked at the baby, sighed. "She told me that 4 years ago. I didn't think she meant it, but something in Jayden's face made him pause. He stepped aside, let them, and gave them water, a blanket, but made it clear, "I can't keep you here long. This could put me in danger." Jayden nodded. "I just want her to get better, then we'll leave." Russell didn't answer. He called someone, whispered instructions. Jayden. So I didn't hear everything, but he knew something was wrong. Meanwhile, William was tearing through the city. He ran facial recognition through subway, taxi, and street camera footage. Then, in a blurry video from a Harlem pharmacy, he saw a familiar face, Jayden, with Hope in his arms, and beside him, a man in a black cap. Russell. The tracking kicked. William followed it to the address. And there, standing in front of a grey door on the 5th floor, his heart beat differently. This wasn't just about finding 2 children anymore. It was about not losing what he had already begun to love. Because William knew if that door didn't open, he would fall apart. But when he knocked, he heard the unmistakable sound of a gun cocking. William's hand trembled before he even touched the doorknob. The sound of the weapon being loaded brought back a fear he had long forgotten. The fear of having no control. His whole life he had known how to maneuver situations, manipulate negotiations, bend decisions with the right words. But here, outside a narrow door in a decaying building, he was just a man begging for something money couldn't. "Bye, Jayden. It's me." His voice echoed down the empty hallway, raw and exposed. "Please, listen to me. Don't do this." Silence. Then footsteps, and the door creaked open, slowly. It was Russell, eyes bloodshot, sweat-stained shirt, gun still in his right. Hand lowered but ready. "You the billionaire who's been chasing after the kid?" William raised his hands slowly. "I just want to take them home." Russell snorted, a dry, bitter laugh. "Home? They don't have a home. Never did. You think you're what, some orphan messiah?" William didn't answer. He looked past him and saw Jayden in the corner, curled up, holding Hope. The baby was pale, weak. That made William step forward. "She needs a hospital. Now." But none of them knew the truth. Russell was under pressure. The person he had called earlier was part of a child trafficking ring operating in the city's margins. People who profited off desperation, selling newborns overseas with forged documents. Jaden, without realizing it, had placed Hope right on their radar, and Russell, drowning in debt and addiction, was already in their pocket. "She's not going anywhere until I get paid what?" "They owe me," he said. William felt fury rise, burning in his throat. "How much?" he asked. Russell hesitated. 10 grand, cash, right now." William reached for his phone, but Russell shook his head. Cash in hand, no wires, no games. Jaden stood up. "Don't do this, he helped us." But his voice was shaking. Hope was feverish. William stepped back, thinking fast. He had to. "Buy time, I'll get it. 15 grand, just take care of her until I come back." Russell gave a short nod. William bolted down the stairs, skipping the elevator, 5 floors in seconds, each step cutting like a blade. In the car, he called his top aide. "I need 15,000 cash now. Drop it at the corner of 129th and Malcolm X Harlem." The voice on the other end stammered. "Mr. Carter, this is dangerous. You're dealing with criminals." William's reply was simple. "I'm dealing with a child's life." But as the money was being gathered, inside the apartment, the air was growing unbearable. Russell was on the phone in the next room, using coded words. "The product's here, ready. Just waiting on delivery," Jaden heard. He understood. His stomach turned. He looked at Hope, barely breathing, and then he knew they had to run. He went to the kitchen, grabbed a small knife, hid it under his hoodie, came back to the room and pretending to sleep. Russell was on the couch, drinking, distracted. Jaden approached, but hesitated. His heart pounded so loud, it felt like a warning bell, and in that second of hesitation, Russell turned around. "What the hell is this?" he shouted. He lunged at Jaden, snatching the knife with violent force. "You trying to kill me, you little shit, is that it?" Jaden hit the floor, curling his body around Hope like a human shield. Russell raised his hand to strike, but the door slammed open. William charged in, 2 armed security guards behind him. Russell was taken down in seconds. The gun hit the floor. His screams muffled as he was pinned to the wall. William rushed to Jaden, still shielding his sister. The boy was trembling. Hope wasn't crying anymore. "Call an ambulance," William shouted. He took the baby in his arms. Her skin was cold, far too cold, and as he ran to the car, William felt something he had never experienced before, real paralyzing panic. At the hospital, minutes felt like centuries. Jaden sat next to him, clutching the purple hair tie like a sacred relic. William paced non-stop, waiting for news. When the doctor finally appeared, silence fell like a sentence. "She's going to make it." But it was close. Half an hour later, William closed his eyes. Not from relief, but from everything still to come. Because in that moment, the world found out. Photos were leaked. Jaden and Hope in William's arms. Headlines exploded. Billionaire. Hiding undocumented children. Investigation opens into possible illegal adoption. William didn't know who had leaked them. But now, they were targets, and forces were moving that wouldn't stop. In the hospital waiting room, a wall-mounted TV played news footage on mute, images now seen across the country. William Carter, the Wall Street mogul, tech titan, surrounded by cameras as he left the hospital holding a child, Jaden at his side, wide-eyed, afraid, and over the footage, a red banner, humanitarian crisis or disguised kidnapping. William said nothing as he saw the headline. He just narrowed his eyes as if the light from the screen physically hurt. Jaden watched him from the corner of his seat, curled up in one of the armchairs, holding a styrofoam cup of hot chocolate that had already gone cold. Hope slept in the NICU, breathing with assistance. She was alive. But the world outside was no longer on their side. The next morning, the agents arrived, not with handcuffs, but with clipboards and protocol. Child Protective Services, Family Court, representatives from the District Attorney's Office, all with one goal: to figure out why 2 minors were in the informal custody of one of the most powerful men in the country, with no records, no history, no legal guardianship. William tried to explain. He told them everything, from the bridge, the cold, the attempted abduction by Russell, But the more he spoke, the deeper the hole seemed to get. "So, Mr. Carter," a woman with her hair pulled into a severe bun asked, "without any background in social services or psychological training, you decided to take in 2 children, one of whom was in critical condition, without notifying authorities." William clenched his jaw, held back a scream. "I didn't take them in. I saved them." But out of context, the words sounded arrogant, misplaced. Jaden sat nearby, listening in silence, and when they asked if he wanted to keep living with William, he hesitated. He took care of us. But if we're going to be separated because of it..." His voice faltered. William felt his stomach turn. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a fight for belonging. And he was losing. But there was something no one saw coming. William's children, his biological kids, distant and nearly forgotten, saw the news. And they reacted, not with anger but with shock. His oldest daughter, Clara, reached out after almost 3 years of silence. "Dad, why did you do this for them and not for us?" The question was simple, and it hit harder than any headline ever could. William tried to answer, but nothing he could say would make it right. He went to the room where Jaden was sleeping, on a makeshift hospital bed, sat beside him, and spoke quietly. "You're right. I'm not your dad. I'm not the best man to take care of anyone. But what I felt when I saw you with Hope on that bridge, I'd never felt anything like it before." Jaden looked at him, eyes watery. "Then why does it hurt so much?" William didn't know how to respond. "Because love, when it comes after a lifetime of control and armor, hurts. It hurts like a broken bone trying to mend, like a wound healing from the inside." He held the boy's hand for the first time, unsure if he'd still have the right to do it the next day. The following afternoon, the court's provisional ruling came down. Hope would be placed in temporary foster care until the guardianship request could be formally reviewed. Jaden, too. They would be separated. William appealed, hired more lawyers, filed emergency motions, but it was no use. "The law must protect the well-being of the children," the judge said, "and that means following due legal process." William didn't cry, but his eyes went red. And when Jaden heard the news, he ran out of the room and vomited in the bathroom. They tried to fight it until the very last moment. When the social services vehicle arrived, Jaden clung to William's shirt. "She needs me. I'm the only one who knows how to calm her down. Please, don't let them take us." And William, no matter how hard he tried to hold on, couldn't stop it. Jaden's hands were slowly pried away. Hope, wrapped in a white blanket, was placed into a separate car, separated, like packages. And when the car disappeared at the intersection, William collapsed to his knees. There, in the middle of the hospital, in front of strangers, security guards, journalists and onlookers, and he fell. The billionaire, the CEO, the man of steel, crying like a child who had just lost everything he didn't know he loved. Because in that moment, he understood. The most unbearable pain is loving too late, and now he would have to fight not only the system, but his own past to rebuild what had been torn apart. The house was dark, as if the walls themselves knew something essential had been ripped from them. William walked the hallways aimlessly. His fingers grazed doors, furniture, as if searching for some leftover trace of Jaden and Hope. But everything felt dead. In their room, a blanket still lay on the floor. A toy car under the bed. Hope's purple hair tie forgotten on the dresser. He picked it up and held it to his chest, where for the first time in years, his heart beat with a weight that wasn't just guilt. It was love and emptiness. That night, William didn't sleep. He spent hours digging through files, laws, documents, trying to understand the system, ready to break into it if needed. But there, staring down bureaucracy's cold rigidity, even his money wasn't enough. What he needed now was something he had never known how to use. Empathy, real humanity. A voice. So for the first time since the scandal, he decided to speak. Not to lawyers, not to executives, but to the world. He called a press conference. The event room at his company's headquarters was packed with journalists, cameras, and curious onlookers. When he stepped onto the stage, he wore a simple grey suit. No tie, dark circles under his eyes made it clear. He was no longer the same man he had been just a week ago. He held the microphone with both hands, took a deep breath, and began. My name is William Carter. I'm the CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the United States. I've won 3 International Innovation Awards. I have 2 biological children, and for the first time in my life, I'm here to say that I've failed. The room was silent. I failed my family. I failed my children. I failed my own humanity. I thought love was something you could delay, buy control, but then I met Jaden and Hope. And then while he said it, they taught me what courage is, what unconditional love means, what it's like to hold a life in your arms and realize there's nothing more important. And even so, the system tore them away from me. Not because I did something wrong, but because I've never stood on the right side until now. The impact was immediate. Social media exploded. People reacted, crying, commenting, criticizing, supporting, but more than anything, they listened. Meanwhile, Jaden stared out the window of the group home where he and Hope had been placed. It was a big institution, clean, organized, with trained caregivers. But it wasn't home. There were no bonds there, only structure. Hope was getting better slowly. But she didn't smile, and Jaden knew she missed him, because babies know the scent of safety, and he had been the only constant in her life since her first breath. Later that afternoon, a staff member called him over, said there was a video he needed to watch. It was the press conference. Jaden watched every word of William's speech in silence, his eyes squinting slightly, as if trying to memorize it from the inside out. When it ended, the staff member asked, "Is he telling the truth?" Jaden didn't answer right away. Then he murmured, "He was lying at first, but now he's telling the truth, like someone who finally understands what it means to have someone depend on you." Across the city, Clara, William's daughter, "Watch too," she cried. For the first time in years, she saw something in her father other than coldness. She called him that night. Her voice was shaking. "I used to hate you, but now I understand. Maybe that's what growing up means. We learn to forgive when we understand what the other person lost too." William couldn't hold back the emotion. "I lost you, but I don't want to lose anyone else." Clara quietly replied, "Then start over, this time do it right." The next day, William went to the Department of Family Services. Not as a CEO, but as a man. He asked to speak before the adoption committee, brought letters, videos, and a formal request for guardianship. But most of all, he brought something no legal form had ever captured: genuine regret, emotional surrender, raw truth. When he finished speaking, the room was silent. Some committee members visibly moved, but there was something no one there had expected. One of the counselors present was a former employee from a public shelter. She remembered Jaden. She remembered his mother. She remembered the night that woman, bruised and broken, had arrived saying, "If I die, someone needs to take care of my kids. Promise they won't fall into the wrong hands." And in that moment, she looked at William and said, "Maybe you are finally the right hands." It wasn't an immediate decision, or an easy one, but for the first time, there was real hope and the chance that they might finally find their way back to each other. The first thing Jaden heard when he returned was the sound of the wooden floor beneath his feet. It wasn't the worn wood of shelters or the cold concrete of the streets. It was warm, alive, and somehow familiar. The housekeeper, Eliza, was waiting at the door. Her eyes were wet, her smile small. "Welcome back, kid." Jaden just nodded, holding Hope in his arms. She was bigger now, but still tiny. Her curious little eyes searched for something, or someone, with the urgency of someone who already knew what abandonment felt like. William appeared at the top of the stairs. No blazer, his shirt slightly wrinkled. He paused, as if he needed to catch his breath for that moment. Then, slowly came down. When he got close, he knelt in front of them. He didn't say a word, just opened his arms. Jaden hesitated for a second, then, with Hope still strapped to his chest, leaned in. The hug was clumsy, but real, and it lasted longer than either of them had allowed in years. The house wasn't the same anymore. William had changed everything, colorful paintings in the halls. A wall in the living room filled with Jaden's drawings, a bookshelf full of children's books, a kitchen with low accessible corners. Even the bedroom door now had two names, Jaden and Hope, letters cut out and glued one by one. It was a home built piece by piece, not with luxury but with intention. That night William cooked dinner, simple mac and cheese. Jaden watched every move. "You know how to cook?" William laughed, leaning against the counter. "I learned. Didn't eat anything that wasn't from a restaurant for 30 years. Figured it was time." Jaden nodded. Hope, now seated in a little adapted high chair, was banging her hands on the table. The sound was light, almost joyful, but the scars were still there. Jaden slept with his hand on her crib every night. He didn't trust silence, woke up every hour to check her breathing. William found him like that one night, sitting next to the bed, eyes wide open, like a guard who couldn't afford to rest. "She's okay," William said. "You can sleep too." Jaden looked at him. "But what if I sleep, and when I wake up, she's gone?" William knelt beside him, took the boy's hand. "Then I promise if that ever happens, it'll be after we've faced everything together all the way through." Jaden didn't respond. But that night he slept 5 hours straight, the first time since the bridge. The new beginning was built in small things. William started working from home. His office was turned into a cozy reading room. Clara, his daughter, came to visit on weekends. She and Jaden developed an unexpected bond. They played cards, drew pictures. Hope, now full of energy, was showing her first signs of walking with help, and every time she smiled, it seemed to erase just a little more of the memory of sirens, the NICU and that hurriedly tied ribbon. One day it rained hard. Jaden sat in his room, watching the water stream down the window. William walked in carrying a box. Inside were Jaden's personal belongings rescued from the group home, a one-armed action figure, a notebook filled with doodles, a crumpled photo of his mother. Jaden picked up the photo gently, stared at it for a long time, then said, "She failed at a lot of things, but she tried, and she taught me how to take care of Hope. That counts for something, right?" William simply replied, "It counts for everything." The following week, they went to the park, the first outing without fear, Hope in her stroller, Jaden wearing a cap, William with a backpack slung over his shoulder. They looked like a family, not perfect, but real. On the grass, Hope took 2 wobbly steps before falling. On her bottom, she laughed. Jaden rushed to help her, but William held him back. "Let her try." They stood there watching, and when she got back up again, something shifted in Jaden's face. A new kind of confidence, a certainty. She was growing. She was alive. But there was something no one expected. When they got home, an envelope was waiting, delivered by a court officer. It was the final ruling on the custody case. William took it with trembling hands. Jaden watched, his heart racing. William took a deep breath, tore the seal, read it in silence, then looked at Jaden, eyes red. "You're my son now, officially, and she's my daughter." Jaden didn't cry. He just rested his head on William's chest. And for the first time, he rested. The autumn sun spilled through the windows in golden light, as if time itself had slowed down to witness the transformation inside that house. Jaden and Hope ran through the backyard, her steps still shaky, his watchful and protective, but now with something new in his eyes, lightness. William watched from the porch, a cup in his hands, his chest full of an emotion he couldn't name. Maybe it was peace. Maybe it was belonging. But even in that golden silence, there was something still unspoken, because every story that's reborn carries, at some point, the weight of what had been buried. That afternoon, Clara brought a box she had found among Jaden's mother's belongings, stored at the shelter before the separation. William accepted it with quiet curiosity. Jaden froze when he saw it. The box was small, dented, tied with a purple ribbon, the same kind Hope wore in her hair. He touched it like someone recovering a piece of their own heart. Inside were letters, aged papers, and a cheap voice recorder with a cassette tape. William and Clara exchanged a glance. Jaden held the device as if he had just pulled his mother back from time. They sat down in the living room. Hope played on the rug, unaware of the weight in the room. Jaden pressed play. His mother's voice filled the air, low, raspy, with simple words but raw tenderness. "If you're listening to this, Jay, it's because I failed, but I swear I tried every day. I tried not to let you see the worst of me. I tried to protect your sister. I tried to be better, but the world ate me from the inside, and I just want you to know. Everything I did wrong. I did trying to keep you alive, and loving you the only way I knew how." Jaden lowered his head. William placed a hand on his shoulder, and for the first time Clara truly understood why her father had changed so much for this boy, because in that fragile recording were all the things William had never given his own children. The words he never said, the touch he always avoided, the love he let rust. But there was more in the box, an unmarked envelope. Inside, an old photo. Jaden's mother as a young woman next to an older woman. On the back, a note. "To my sister, who taught me to love before everything fell apart." Clara recognized her. "This woman, she worked with me years ago at a shelter. She used to talk about a sister who disappeared." William picked up the phone, found a contact, called. The woman cried when she heard her sister's name. She was Jaden's aunt, and she had never known Hope existed. 30 years had passed, a lifetime of silence, guilt, and distance. Days later, she came to the house. The meeting was quiet at first. Jaden didn't know how to react. Hope stared at her, curious. But when the woman picked up the ribbon and said, "I gave this to your mom when we were kids," Jaden cried. She knelt down, touched his face with both hands. "She made mistakes, but she loved you so much, baby. And now you can be free from all of that. You can live something new." And in that moment, for the first time, William felt he could stop fighting the past, that he could start building the future with more than protection, with roots, with shared stories, with connection. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, he went to the office, turned on the computer, and wrote a letter, not to the committee, not to the lawyers, to Jaden. The next morning, Jaden found the letter folded neatly on his bed. It told the story of a man who spent his whole life trying to be respected and failed to be loved. It spoke of the fear of becoming the father he never had, and of what he'd learned because of it. "You didn't just save Hope on that bridge, you saved me too. You saved the man I used to be and gave me permission to become someone else. Thank you for letting me love you, even when I didn't know how." Jaden read the letter slowly. Then he ran outside to find William, who was in the garden, watching Hope play with Clara. Jaden didn't say a word. He just ran into his arms, tight, fearless, without hesitation, for the first time like a son. But there was something no one expected. The phone rang. William answered. On the other end, the voice was firm. "We have information regarding Hope's biological father." The past wasn't finished with them, and the real test was about to begin. The sky was orange that evening, as if time itself were trying to soften the weight of the news at the door. William hung up the phone slowly, like closing an old letter. Jaden stood at the edge of the garden, holding Hope's hand. She was learning to walk more steadily now, and looked at the world like someone just starting to believe it might be kind. But William's expression held something Jaden recognized from a distance, the hesitation of someone carrying a truth too heavy to say all at once. They sat on the porch steps. William took a deep breath before speaking. "Jay, we found Hope's biological father." The words lingered in the air like a cold breeze in the wrong season. Jaden didn't respond. He just gripped his sister's hand tighter. William continued. "He's in another city. He didn't know she existed. It was a brief relationship with your mum. He wants to meet her. He's not asking for custody, yet. But the law gives him that right." Jaden looked down. She doesn't know him. He wasn't the one holding her when she trembled at night. He didn't sing lullabies while waiting for cops to knock at the door. He's not her home. William stayed calm. I know, and we're going to fight, but I won't lie to you. This could be a long process, a painful one, but I promise, you won't go through it alone. The next day, a video call was arranged with the biological father. His name was Trevor. He was 28, worked in building maintenance in Detroit, and looked more scared than aggressive. I didn't know. If I had, I would have come. But I never imagined she existed. Jaden stared at him through the screen, his eyes hard. Hope in Clara's lap babbled softly, not understanding who that face was. Trevor didn't ask for custody, but he asked to see her, to get to know her. She's my blood. I just want a chance to feel like I did something right. In this life. William stayed silent. Jaden stood up. She doesn't need blood. She needs someone who stayed when no one else did. The call ended. The days that followed were quiet. William gave Jaden space but watched him closely. The pain wasn't loss. Not yet. It was fear. Fear that what they'd built could be undone by a name on a piece of paper. But there was something Jaden didn't know. One night while the house was asleep, William went to the children's room. He sat in the chair by the crib and began writing. Not another letter, but a formal statement of intent. If Trevor truly wanted to be part of Hope's life, he would only do so through a bond built on love, not biology. William submitted the statement to the family court judge and waited. Weeks passed. Then an envelope arrived, a final ruling. Trevor had voluntarily relinquished custody. Enclosed was a handwritten letter. To Jaden, William, Clara, and most of all, Hope. I understand now. I understand that love isn't just where you come from. It's where you choose to stay. I wasn't there, but you were. And that means more than any right I have. All I ask is that you let her know one day that there was a man who realized the most beautiful way to love someone is to not get in the way of the love they already have. Jaden read the letter slowly, then went straight to Hope's room. She was asleep, the ribbon still in her hair, her arm stretched across the blanket. He sat next to her and whispered, "You're safe now, we won, we stayed together." The next day, William took them to the ocean. It was the first time Hope had ever seen it. Her eyes went wide. Jaden ran to the edge of the water, carrying her in his arms. He shouted, laughed, jumped. From a distance, William watched, feeling something shift inside. It wasn't just pride, it was freedom. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, William took off his shoes, walked into the water up to his knees and called Jaden over. The two stood there, the waves gently breaking at their ankles, while Hope clapped and giggled in Clara's lap on the sand. "Do you think this will last?" Jaden asked. William looked at the ocean, then back at him. "If we keep choosing each other, it'll last long enough for her to never forget who held her hand first." Jaden smiled, the kind of smile that only comes after a lot of pain, and ran back toward the shore. And there, on a quiet beach, no applause, no headlines, no heroic promises. Three people who never would have chosen each other in any other world chose to stay. And that was enough to change everything. Thank you for staying with us to the end, but don't go just yet. On the next screen, there's another powerful story waiting for you. Click, subscribe to the channel, and share with someone who needs hope today. I'll see you there.